This is our fucking city.
He just shook up the world.
I don't even know where he's sitting at.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy, Raul Infante here with Taking Dish Sports. Don't forget, we're not only the guys that watch these sports, but we analyze them. So we're all sick and tired of hearing the coronavirus, so I promise you this will be the last time that I mention it. We're going to cover something more interesting, something that we've been craving in its sports. And the hottest sport right now is obviously the NFL offseason. So we're going to start off with who? Maybe, you know what? I won't say the greatest because I'm not trying to lose some subscribers. I'll say the most decorated NFL player to ever play the game, and that being Tom Brady. After 20 seasons of being in New England, he's a free agent. The Patriots can't franchise tag him. The Patriots don't have any salary cap to sign him. So what happens? He has a meeting with the coach, with the owner, and it doesn't work out. You have Tampa Bay Buccaneers that offer him 2 years, $60 million, all guaranteed. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be 3 years, $90 million guaranteed, because the GOAT should win more than Kirk Cousins that was okay with the Washington Redskins. Got the 86 guaranteed from the Minnesota Vikings. But you know what? Congratulations to Tom Brady. Many of those championships, who knows if the Patriots would have been that successful if it wasn't for Tom Brady taking pay cuts after pay cuts after pay cuts. He could have taken the Aaron Rodgers route, gone that way, getting paid all those millions of dollars, and not end up winning any chips. One, you know what? He has 6 because of what he did, so he deserves to play in another franchise if he feels that's the best thing for his career in this moment. He has 3 great receivers, being in Chris Evans, Godwin, and then you have also Brashad Perriman. I have no idea why that guy's still a free agent. He balled when those 2 wide receivers were out at the end of the season for the Buccaneers. You gotta give credit to Tampa Bay for having those 3 wide receivers. They might lose Perriman, but AB is on the block. Pay the man $8 million, $10 million a year. Maybe take the 6-game suspension, but you know what? AB has made it clear, and Tom Brady has also made it clear that they want to play in the same team. And Tampa Bay is a team that hasn't won a championship since 2002. They almost made it to the playoffs if it wasn't for Jameis Winston throwing all those picks in that game. Came up short, but Tom Brady is not going to do that. And a Bruce Arians offense that obviously is going to have to take some tweaks. He likes throwing the tight ends, short passes. They're going to have to maybe sign a running back. They have the 5th highest salary cap space in this offseason. Now that you signed Tom Brady, you went from 84 to 54. Come on, you could sign plenty of players. There's plenty of guys out there in the offseason that still need contracts. But guys like O.J. Howard now, that the Patriots were trying to trade to give Tom Brady offensive weapons, now no longer is going to be a trading chip. He's going to be right there because Tom Brady, we all know, likes to throw those short passes, slot receivers. They're going to be able to figure it out. And man, I'm going to name a couple of those teams that Tom Brady's going to be playing, and it's going to be a lot easier of a roster this season over the New England Patriots that are going to have the number 1 strength of schedule, a schedule for the 2020 season, unfortunately. Here we go. You have Atlanta, you have Carolina, you have Chicago, Denver, Detroit, and New Orleans. Woo! Licking my chops thinking about seeing Tom Brady versus Breeze twice a year, not once. And Brady notoriously is unsuccessful in the heat. But you know what? All old people go to Florida to retire. So it's pretty damn good seeing Tom Brady being 42, 43 years old, going to Florida, hopefully having fun with these new guys on that team. So with this video, actually, we're going to cover not Tom Brady, but a lot of the signings and movements that has happened so far in the NFL. It reminds me of the NBA season last season, where there was so much movement that it just made it a lot more fun for everybody to obviously tune in. So we covered Tom Brady. The second biggest signing was obviously the franchise tag for the Dallas Cowboys. You had Dak Prescott talking about, I want $40 million a year. Unless you're playing QB, the starting QB of the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm sorry, you don't deserve $40 million a year. Stop being greedy. The Cowboys are trying to pay you. They're going to franchise tag him, or they franchise tagged him for $33 million a year. Don't make the same mistake that Melvin Gordon did and sat out and then ended up getting less money. Instead of making $10 million a year, now Melvin Gordon is making $8 million a year for 2 years. See what I'm saying? So let's just continue on, right? We have Dak Prescott got his franchise tag with that team. Next up, you got a man that's also been in the league that's very, very successful, was in the LA Chargers, and now bought a house in Miami, so I honestly thought that he was going to play for the Miami Dolphins, but he ends up getting signed by the Indianapolis Colts. Nah, listen. It could actually be a positive thing. That offensive line for Indy is nasty. They had Jacoby Brissett, and let's be honest, he's not a starting QB. He's a great backup, you know what I mean? He's not Teddy Bridgewater, but, you know, he's an okay backup. But having Phillip Rivers there, having time and okay weapons, well, they have to figure that out in Indianapolis. But just having that O-line is going to help Phillip Rivers a lot, and especially L.A., you know, it's fun playing in L.A., but that market, it's more San Francisco 49ers, LA Rams. The Chargers are just that floating team that not many fans were going to. Indianapolis Colts, they show up every single game, no matter what, and it's also a dome, so we'll see how it's going to go for Phillip Rivers. Next person, Kirk Cousins, right? I thought that it was actually unsuccessful, even though he made it to the playoffs a couple times with the Vikings. It's not always about playoff appearances. I'm sorry. I'm from New England. We win championships here, so there's higher expectations. But when you get $86 million guaranteed, you better ball out. And they were a run-first team in Minnesota. And if you notice, in the second half of the 19 season, Kirk Cousins stepped up. They had their running backs be hurt. And next thing you know, Kirk Cousins is throwing it downfield, turning the ball over a lot less in the second half of the season. So they extended him for 2 more years. Hey, we never know, but it looks like contract years motivate Kirk Cousins. Sort of like Ryan Tannehill, the man that played in the Miami Dolphins, had the torn ACL. He had some promise. Then that injury happens, ends up going to the Tennessee Titans. You have Marcus Mariota there, that's the number 1 pick in the NFL, does nothing with his career. And then Ryan Tannehill steps in, and man, they're the hottest team. They end up making it to the playoffs. They end up knocking the Patriots out. You know what I mean? That team is solid. And there was a lot of back and forth whether the Tennessee Titans were going to let Ryan Tannehill walk or sign Tom Brady. They made it clear 4 years for Ryan Tannehill to come back and play for the Tennessee Titans, which I think is actually a solution for that team because Ryan Tannehill is going to come into the season with a lot of confidence. They got rid of the rumors nice and early, gave him his contract, so he has nothing to worry about. Someone that does need to worry about something is Cam Newton, because you just have Teddy Bridgewater that just signed with the Carolina Panthers, 3 years, $63 million. Listen, I applaud him for somebody that was a backup quarterback for Drew Brees that went in and didn't lose a single game when everybody thought that the Saints season might have been in jeopardy. That was pretty damn good. The fact that the Saints had the opportunity to have the number 1 or number 2 seed at the end of the season, props to Teddy Bridgewater, and I'm glad that he got paid. But again, Cam Newton, what are you going to do, right? I'm glad that he stuck to his guns and thanked the fans in Carolina, but he made sure that everybody knew that it wasn't him asking for a trade, that it was actually the team forcing him to find the trade so he could go elsewhere. Man, would he look good in a New England uniform. Another right? Because New England doesn't have any cap space. So for now, we have to settle for a third stint with the backup to Jacoby Brissett, right? And Brian Hoyer. You know, he comes in cheap. Bill Belichick, you know what? He's a great backup if Jarrett Stidham doesn't work out on that team. So we'll see where that goes. But let's just continue on with the other free agents that got massive contracts. Listen, I think the dumbest team so far in this offseason has to be, drum roll please, the Houston Texans. You have Deshaun Watson, that's one of the youngest and best quarterbacks in the NFL, right? His best option is who? DeAndre Hopkins. He's top 3 wide receivers in the NFL, and you trade DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals for David Johnson, the man that was the number 1 pick in fantasy football 3 seasons ago. Then these last 2 seasons, he broke his hand, then he had his knee injuries. You do not trade for... Listen, you're not going to be an impactful running back in the NFL above the age of 30 years old. Even Adrian Peterson, the man that I grew up seeing as a Superman on that field, is not the same guy that he was then when he was in his 20s. DeAndre Hopkins goes and ends up with the Texans. Good luck. With the Arizona Cardinals. Now, who does Deshaun Watson throw to? Will Fuller? That man can't stay on the field, right? Every time he runs a long route, boom, pulls a hammy, he's out. All you see is those blonde dreadlocks on the sidelines. He can't stay on the field, so who does Deshaun Watson throw to? And to make things worse, the Texans traded D-Hop for David Johnson because they wanted a running back. Keep in mind, the running back last year that they brought in ran pretty damn good for them. But then you have a man from the LA Rams that just got cut for the LA Rams and signed to Atlanta for 1 year, $5 million. After this short break, I'll let you know who that man is. Hey guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell button for more notifications. So with that being said, we're going to continue on with the player that we were discussing that was probably the steal in free agency after the LA Rams cut him. That is your hint. That being Todd Gurley. The Atlanta Falcons finally smartened up and got rid of Devontae Freeman. That was useless, I think, in that team anyways. They got Austin Hooper to sign with the Browns, with the Cleveland Browns, unfortunately. 4 years, $44 million. So they had to get a big-time player there in the running back position. Can you imagine already the return of Todd Gurley in Atlanta, right? Where you already have a nasty, maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL, and you also have Matt Ryan that won the MVP season until he lost to the New England Patriots in that Super Bowl. Yes, but imagine you have Matt Ryan, you have Julio Jones, and you have Todd Gurley. That's an amazing trio on offense right there. So I think it's a steal. Speaking of wide receivers and steals, Emmanuel Sanders just signed in a really team-friendly contract with the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, we know that the New Orleans Saints re-signed Drew Brees to a 2-year, $50 million contract. And now you end up with Emmanuel Sanders. I don't understand why teams take so long to sign this guy. 2 years, $16 million, $8 million a year for a wide receiver that's drop rate is incredible. You could throw him any pass and he's going to catch it. The Denver Broncos were falling apart, so they traded him to the San Francisco 49ers. I thought that was an amazing trade. Obviously, he contributed greatly because the San Francisco 49ers ended up in the Super Bowl. Yeah, they ended up short, but he showed his production in a short term with a new system. So imagine him being in the Saints with Drew Brees also being one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. There's a reason why that man has the most passing yards in the NFL all time. And then you also have Stefon Diggs that was traded from the Minnesota Vikings, which I think is a hit on that team because their wide receiver core was actually hurt last year, and Stefon Diggs stepped up when they needed to. But he was being in the locker room. But he was traded to the Bills, right? That team is going to need a big-time player like that, especially when New England taking a step back after losing a whole bunch of players, being, Tom Brady being the leader of that locker room. Obviously, that team's not getting any younger, so the Bills have the highest chance of winning that division and finally taking that step over New England. So I thought it was a great trade. One contract for a wide receiver that I thought was crazy was the one that Amari Cooper got, though, from the Dallas Cowboys. Typical, though, the Cowboys, though, paying a wide receiver 5 years, $100 million. Yes, he's not 30 years old yet. He will be by the time that he, ends that contract. But what I saw from Amari Cooper last year was he had no fight in him when he had a tough cornerback. Let's say, for example, you know what? Stefon Diggs wins Defensive Player of the Year. But if you're getting paid $20 million a year, you better have at least one reception on a cornerback like that. That's why a trade that the Arizona Cardinals did with the Houston Texans, I thought was an amazing trade for the Cardinals and a stupid one for the Texans because D-Hop balls out on no matter who it is that's guarding him. But Amari Cooper, did he? I don't know. But you know what? The Dallas Cowboys did the right thing in re-signing him. Before that money, that's tough. You know what also is tough? That starting job for Mitch Trubisky, because they talked about, oh, this is the man for our franchise. This is the man for our franchise. They have that nasty defense. And they always talk about the 85 Bears because they can only reference to that poor team that won 100 years ago. So they get Mitch Trubisky in the draft, and he has done nothing to fulfill that franchise every single time. But what they do, they trade for Nick Foles. Poor Nick Foles, right? He's playing for the Jaguars, gets his collarbone broken right away. So he ends up coming back and does nothing. He goes to the Bears, and now he could compete for that starting role. You guys all remember the last time that he was a backup QB. He ends up winning the Super Bowl against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots team. So I think it's a great move for that Chicago Bears team, and I think that they'll be able to win a lot more games with him actually as a starting QB. If not, put the pressure on Mitch Trubisky to get it going, because it's now or never. You're not going to be paying all these guys all this money on the defense and offense to win 8 games a year. It's just not acceptable. So with that, guys, actually, that wraps it up for the NFL signings and trades so far. I'm excited to continue on seeing what's going on. Forget everything that's going on in the news. I won't say it again. I promised you guys in the beginning of the video. So I hope you guys continue to tune in on Taking This Sports. We're your host, Raul Infante. Enjoy your night.
You have to say it. And wash your hands.
And wash your hands, please.